It's the English Beat starting us off on a Friday. This is the Bennington Show. I'm Ron Bennington. There's Gail Bennington.
Yo.
And I am Ron Bennington. A lot of great guests lined up today. We're doing a town hall later on this morning and with Eddie Izzard. And Vito has a prize to give out for the first responder Twitters.
We have a signed poster by Eddie Izzard from the town hall. It's a really nice poster. I'm excited about it.
A really nice
poster.
Signed by Eddie Izzard. So this is one of those unique one in a million type posters. I mean, you're going to have the only copy that's ever been signed, the only town hall copy. And Eddie Izzard is just greatness. I just love him.
How do we tweet to win?
You're going to tweet at The Bennington Show, and you're going to tweet at Eddie Izzard.
He's a Twitter guy. He likes to tweet.
He likes to tweet.
I didn't know that.
He's a Twitter tweet.
I didn't know that he twitters, and I didn't know that he tweets. Also, we've got Donald Fagan coming up a little later on in the show. And one of Gail's filmmaking heroes, Sofia Coppola, is going to be here.
I'm so excited. She's going to be in to promote The Beguiled, which is her new movie. Comes out in select theaters. And, I really enjoyed it.
Well, I've seen every film that she's done. We've talked about this before when there's filmmakers that you're like, oh, I'm going to see everything that she's done. And my favorite film by her is not even the Bill Murray movie. My favorite film is Somewhere.
Yeah.
And I could never even understand why. You know what I mean? Like, there was something hypnotic about that film for me.
It's got, like, a great texture to it. I think she makes a really good setting, scene. I think, like, she uses all of the colors when she...
And one of the girls from Beguiled played in that film as well.
Yes, that is Elle Fanning.
Elle Fanning,
yeah.
But she is going to be with her... I guess you would get around to now this is her muse, Kirsten Dunst.
Yes, they have worked together quite a few times. And I honestly think it's a pretty interesting combination, like the two of them working together. Like, what was it about each other? Like, do you just get along with someone and you're just like, you know what, I'm just going to keep writing movies and keep casting this person.
When someone does that, do you feel like the director sees them as their stand-in? You know what I mean? Like, oh, they kind of represent me to me.
Yeah.
Like the rest of us might see that, but the director might.
I know that they're certainly in theater because it tends to be more based on the playwright rather than the director has more power. And that happens oftentimes with playwrights where they kind of like link up with an actor and they're like, oh, this is like the surrogate me,
right,
who I drop into this role.
Well, who was the Pink Panther director that he was like a real slapstick type director, and then he ended up using, Blake Edwards was his name.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, you're like, well, they don't seem like, and people always said that Peter Sellers was difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
But those were great movies together.
Yeah, I think sometimes even if it's not like an exact, like we are the same, it's just like that person might be just on the right wavelength. Like my favorite where you would say almost like at muse status would be John Waters and Divine working together because the two of them were very different.
Right.
They're not the same. They're certainly not physically the same. They don't talk the same. But there was something about Divine, like I don't think that that they could have made that kind of connection with anyone else. Like, I don't think Divine could have been matched with anyone else.
No, Divine would not have been an actor.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have happened that way. Paul Feig and Melissa McCarthy. And again, there's, I don't know, the way she does dialogue, but also her physicality, which is great. But look at Scorsese. This, to me, is weird. Robert De Niro, which was his kind of strong Italian stand-in, since Scorsese was like an asthmatic kid and all that. But then, as De Niro gets older, he drops him and goes for, a little wasp. A pretty little wasp.
Twinkish.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, some of these directors, like, have a cast of characters where you would say, like, who would you pick as their main muse or their main go-to actor? Like, who would you say for the Coen brothers? Because the Coen brothers have used some reoccurring actors, but who would you say is the definitive Coen brother actor?
I would say Frances McDormand.
Yeah. Because I was thinking, because I'm like, would you say it's John Goodman? Would you say it's Francis?
Well, they never star John Goodman.
Right.
And they don't always star Francis either. What about the Irish guy? They only used him once.
Gabriel Byrne.
No, not Gabriel Byrne. No, it was exactly Gabriel Byrne.
I mean, give
But I
him
don't
a
know.
chance.
There's something about that made me feel like he was the giant stand-in for them.
All right, who would you?
Buscemi too, though.
Yeah.
Is weird.
Who would you guys say is Wes Anderson's go-to muse? Because again, there's quite a few cast of characters, quite a few actors that they go to.
Owen Wilson? I think it's good. Owen's a blonde, right?
Yes.
Yes. I get it mixed up.
Hold on.
I get it mixed up all the time.
Come on.
Owen, I really do.
You can't tell the difference between Owen Wilson and Luke Wilson.
I know the differences, but I just can never remember who's who.
You know he's the butterscotch stallion. You're the
I
one
know that.
who taught us that name.
That's also not really the difference.
I don't think it's Owen Wilson. I mean, I would have kind of thought that from the beginning, or his brother Luke.
Yeah.
But I think we've moved on now.
Well, I mean, it might be Bill Murray. Might be.
I don't think it is. I think it's the other guy.
Schwartzman?
Yeah, who was also related to Sofia Coppola. He's
Yes.
the cousin of. So I kind of feel like it's Schwartzman.
Yeah, particularly because Wes Anderson discovered him.
And they
Like, that was
kind of dress alike.
They do. They are on the same wavelength.
Yes.
I love the story of how they found Jason Schwartzman. This was after like an insanely long casting thing. The character had been written entirely different in Rushmore. Max Fisher was supposed to be this like cool guy James Dean character, which is really strange. And I wonder even what kind of additions they made to the character after they met him. But he walked in and he was wearing like a schoolboy's like jacket, like wearing like a little crest and everything. And Wes Anderson was just like, this kid is so weird. This is his movie. And he didn't really know why or how, but he was willing to change everything. And they had been looking tirelessly for this perfect character. And they're like, this guy's nothing like what we were looking for, but this is his movie. Like, how crazy is that?
First of all, isn't that all you want in your life, for somebody to say, we've seen you and we're changing everything for you?
Yes.
I mean, it never happens.
No.
It never happens.
Shouldn't.
You know? I mean, my whole life I've just been looking for one producer. That's it. Just one.
I could be there. I came up with Gabriel Byrne. I mean,
You're such a pain in the ass.
Seriously.
I mean,
You're the fucking worst, dude.
this is why he gets shushed by Vito all the time.
Cancel Sofia Coppola.
No,
I'm gonna
no,
check
why-
no, because her life is better than mine. She has Kirsten Dunst, and I have Chris Stanley. And that is the difference. It's good versus evil.
I want to be your Kirsten.
God, that's so weird.
You're just trying to screw me up today.
I'm not.
You know I'm tired and wired. Look, I'm not doing this interview.
No, please,
she's
please
so
stay
close.
because I don't want to be. Stop.
Look,
speaking.
I'm just turning my head and shaking it no at her.
No,
No, Sophia.
please
don't
don't say that. Please
don't
say
want
that
you
to
here.
her.
I
Please
don't want you here.
don't let Chris Stanley ruin this for us.
That fucking Gabriel Byrne thing, he knew was going to annoy me. He fucking knew it. And he was like, how can I take a long knife and stick it in your arm?
I would never.
You just did it. How could you say
long
never?
knives, dude?
Just twist it now. Twist it so it tears out whatever
That's what you're gonna do?
inside stuff I have.
I want to pull it out.
I want you,
Ew.
and pull out all the cords that are wrapped around my heart. So you fucker. No, Sophia, you're
No,
not
please
coming
don't
in.
say that to her.
You're not coming in. No, not here. She looks like she's confused by it. Let's bring them in. It's Kirsten Dunst and Sofia Coppola. And the movie is, Gail?
The Beguiled. Sofia Coppola and Kirsten Dunst, The Beguiled, comes out in select theaters, New York and LA, Friday, June 23rd. Go to thebeguiledmovie.com for more information. Congratulations on this film.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much.
The Civil War. I think it's been a long time since we kind of really looked back at a film like this to see how these characters would have acted in those times.
Yeah, to me, it was interesting to think about this group of women cut off from the war. And you don't usually see, what's happening at home, and this group of women in a Southern girls' school, isolated during the Civil War time.
What was it about this exact story that made you want to adapt it?
Yeah, I just thought it was an interesting story with girls and women of so many different ages and different stages of their life living together and how they interact and all those dynamics. And then also when they take in this enemy soldier played by Colin Farrell, how it affects them all. And also all the kind of power struggles between men and women that are universal, to be able to look at those in a really kind of fun, entertaining Southern Gothic story.
Yeah, it's interesting because each of the characters kind of pull from their own strength. Kirsten, your character is strong in such a very different way than each of the other women. So what was it about that character that you kind of hung on to? What was it about that character that you liked?
I like that there's so much unsaid with Edwina. She really is a boiling, like there's a lot going on. She's about to implode kind of. So because she's hates this man because he's an enemy, and yet wants to protect the children and be a good Christian example, and then is starting to have feelings for him as well. So all those things combined, I think, really makes Edwina a really interesting character. Plus she has Miss Martha, who, she's under her thumb, and so she's just very repressed and also very innocent too.
I always love the fact that when you have a formal setting, right, that it creates this bubbling kind of energy because you can't express yourself.
They're very buttoned up, and it's they're raised to be Southern ladies, and then they have feelings of desire, and he's an enemy, and so it was fun to play with all the kind of tension under the surface.
Now, is it exhausting to work on a project where the response is, what does this say about women, and what does this mean about women in society and the way they act? Or is that part of what is great about working on a project like this?
I think it's interesting if it makes interesting conversation and people want to talk about it and think about it. So I'm all for that, and it's I think it's an interesting topic.
Yeah, and it's a fun movie. I mean, it's thrilling, this movie. It's you also don't get to see so many actresses all the time work together so closely, and that's a nice thing. Yeah, different age groups. Yeah.
Well, also, when you look at Colin, he is also using whatever he has. So it's almost like he is set up in the way that we think that women use flirtation. That becomes suddenly his thing because that's what he has for power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he has to survive, so he's charming them any way he can. And I like the title, The Beguiled, because you don't know who is the beguiled, and it kind of shifts back and forth, and I think it's fun to watch.
Yeah, that's kind of a shift, because when we discussed it after watching, my first reaction is to say, okay, so you see the way the women use their power. It's kind of power in reserve. They're using what they have to their benefit. But it is kind of like a role reversal to have the male character be in that position as well.
And he's the object, which you don't see very often.
Yeah, he's definitely the object, and he's aware of it right away. Like right away, he's like, how can I use everything I have just to stay alive? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a part of you that when you watch this, you're seeing a guy who's trying to stay out of the hangman's noose,
Yeah, and I think it's fun to watch how different he has to interact with each one differently. So he has to find out what the needs of each one is. And to the 12-year-old, he's a big brother, and then to Nicole, he's an adult compared to she's with kids all the time. So
and then for me, it's like an escape. Like this is my way. This is my ticket out, but also
I'm going to take you away from here.
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood did a version of this in the 70s, and his fans hated it because they felt like he gave up his Clint Eastwoodness, right? So they're like, why would you do this? Then he came back with Dirty Harry after that.
They like to see him in charge.
Yes, they like to see him shooting people and not thinking of anything besides violence. But to see him trying to work his way in this environment, I thought even the entire idea of that is always Interesting. Like it's always going to every story reflects the society that's now. You know.
Yeah, and I think the movie they made is very 70s sensibility, and this is really retelling from the female character's point of view. So it's a shift. But the French liked the Don Siegel Beguiled.
They did. It was very much what we used to call a drive-in movie. You know what I mean? That you would
it's
see
a great B movie.
Yeah, that you would see this with two other films, and the entire reason to be there when you were a kid was just to have some place where you could drink and smoke pot.
I can see that, and that was kind of psychedelic. The 70s one. Well,
it opened up with Clint making out with a child in the opening scene.
Yeah, we made changes.
Yeah, and you took the incest out of it.
Yeah, we took out the incest storyline and changed certain and in the book the character was an Irish immigrant, so we thought it'd be fun for Colin to speak with his real accent.
Well, it's perfect casting for him anyway, right? It's like this is
charming rogue.
Yeah, the charming rogue who is in over his head. You know what I mean? That's perfect for him.
You did such a phenomenal job creating a texture that kind of gives a feeling for the time. It made me think a lot about Marie Antoinette as well, because there's such a richness with the costume and the natural lighting. Is that a part of it for you, the research and getting into that kind of stuff where?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to feel authentic to the period, and the South has such a history and beauty and a darkness, of course, and I really wanted to feel the atmosphere and I wanted to make this beautiful feminine world, so when he comes into it, you don't feel like there's any threat at all, so it's more of a surprise as the story makes shifts. And then we tried to learn as much as we could. We had an etiquette teacher and a sewing teacher and a Civil War reenactor teach us how to do the bandages
and dance class, and what else do we do? Just how to lift your dress up properly,
right?
Setting tables, prayers, who to call what and how to address them.
Kirsten, do you really enjoy delving into the research aspect as well? Or
for me, I like what it brings out in myself. So for me, I'm not I got to research. I watched Lord of the Flies for this movie. Like, I like things that expand your own creative mind rather than the facts of the time.
But I like that you, Gail, brought up atmosphere, because that is one of the first places you go with setting up a film. I know that I could watch Somewhere for hundreds of times, and I even think to myself, I don't know where my mind goes when I'm watching.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
such a nice compliment.
I know, thank you. I mean, to me, that's a real starting point of the story as I first think about the atmosphere and the mood you want to create that supports the story. And this one, I wanted you had to really feel like you were in the South with them, and you had really cut off that the days are long, and
the lighting is phenomenal in it.
Oh yeah, I loved working. We had a great cinematographer, Philippe Lassorde, who really helped create this look that I feel like is hopefully draws you in.
I also like the fact that it's a bubble inside this. Incredibly, we stay inside the bubble with them, but all outside them, whether these are Southern troops or Yankee troops, they could be in at any moment.
Welcome back to Bennington.
Thank you.
Ron Bennington, Gail Bennington, Chris Stanley Bennington, Jen, the Dish Bennington.
Oh, I like you, Jen, the Dish. The hot dish.
I'm going to get that started. Just calling Jen the Dish around the office.
I like it. Where's the dish?
Have you ever had a bad nickname that you tried to shake? Like, did you ever? But you would never tell.
I successfully shook it. There's something happened to me in the Carneys.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. And then they tried to get that started.
Oh, no, it got started.
Oh, yeah.
It stayed that summer. I kind of was even enjoying it at the time. But you know what I am always like? A nickname should be temporary to those people. I hate when it gets played out. Like, I'll meet somebody, like, when I lived in Florida, a guy fucking moved down. And he goes like this. I meet him, and he just came to Florida. And he goes, "Hi, I'm Wally, but everyone calls me Skeeter." I go, "Well, they don't have to now, dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just moved to a new place.
I noticed
Why don't
that.
you be Wally?"
I noticed that when I went to college, people would like show up and immediately say like, "This is what my friends called me in high school."
Yeah.
We just hit reset. You'll get your new nickname.
Yeah, drop it.
It's totally over.
Well, you don't want to end up like Chris Stanley, new nickname every week.
No, that's the worst.
That was the big wheel last week.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
gone already.
Well, that's because we started calling you Flatbed Ford. That's a fucking great nickname.
Mr. Banana Batter is probably the one that I wish stuck. But
Oh, that was from what, Monday or so? Yeah.
I
That was a good one.
I tried to keep bringing it up, but I like the ones that are hurtful to him. So up on the iBang, Vito has a new story up.
It's 7 fictional colleges that you wish you could have applied to.
So the reason why you did this, Flounder died.
Yeah, Flounder died, so I put this list together of different fictional colleges that you wish you could have applied to. So it's from different movies and TV shows that you might
First of
remember.
all, to say you wish you would have applied to is stupid because if anything, I'm just trying to remember them. But other than Faber on Animal House, I don't know if I can think of another one.
Well, the funny thing about that is if we're already wishing like this fictional thing, you still have to do the application
Yes.
process.
You still
You
have
don't
to-
just wish that you were in the college. Like, I wish I could apply to
That's
this
a good
college
point.
and hope that they get back to
Yeah,
me.
that's like before you masturbate, he thinks, "Who's a beautiful girl I wish I was calling up and trying to ask out on a date?" Just get right there, okay?
Okay, so Faber College, like you just said, Flounder died. That's one of the top ones everybody knows.
Flounder died is the name of the
Well, no,
the
Flounder,
college?
Flounder died. It's called Faber College from Animal
Faber?
House. Faber.
Okay.
Faber College from Animal House.
Now, when I was younger, I was like, "Oh, that would be pretty cool." But now I'm looking back. Not only was the Dick frat dicks, but so was Belushi's frat.
Yeah.
They're still fucking throwing beer on people and being mean to
They're
them.
still a frat.
Yeah, they're still asshole frats.
They're not like, hey, we do things a little bit differently.
Damn, and fucking what Pinto and what's his name, the other guy that at the top of the frat, they were running everything. I don't know. I thought it's one of us put this together, but what I'm trying to say is this: those are also dicks.
Yeah, I wouldn't like the strong military presence on campus that you saw with the ROTC program there.
Well, that's because you were gearing up for Vietnam.
Oh, well, I had ROTC in my school, and I know I wasn't a big fan. I did it for 2 years, and then I stopped.
Now, the fictional college that comes to mind for me is PCU
I forgot that one.
because when I was in college, and I don't know if this is true, but the rumor was that PCU was written by someone who based it on SUNY Purchase. So everybody was always watching PCU freshman year and trying to figure out the ties and similarities because people said the screenwriter went there. So I don't actually know if it's
But
true.
then also somebody said it wasn't true.
Yeah, like there was a back and forth thing, but everybody was going, "Oh, PCU was based on Purchase College."
Was your
PC.
was that college very PC?
It certainly was very liberal. But I would say that's probably most people's experience. It's a liberal college and it's very arts based. So like there was like all the subgroups that they kind of go through in PCU was there. But I would imagine that's like, oh, the hippies hang out here and like the Black Power kids hang out over here. And I was like, I'm pretty sure most colleges have that.
Yeah,
setup.
I mean, if you're a conservative college, you're probably a Christian conservative
Right.
college, which means sounds like no fun. All right, Chris, you got one of these.
Oh, the college from Old School, I thought was fucking pretty great.
I forgot that college. What was the name of it?
That one didn't make the list because... But because the movie isn't really about the college, it's about the frat that really doesn't have a lot to do with the college. You're just
Well,
on the campus.
what happens at the end of the?
They have the
They're
chase.
fighting
Yeah.
to stay on.
Yeah.
Yes, again, Jeremy Piven, also in PCU.
And
Cheese, also a nickname.
Yeah.
But it's not about the college. It's
And
about
also,
the frat.
you're my boy, Blue.
Come on, man.
Forget about that.
You don't put that college in?
It wasn't. The movie wasn't about the college. I felt
Right,
like
Chris
the
is
college
out.
was a background character.
Bullshit.
How many points did I get for PCU?
You got a lot of points. I was on the list.
Fuck.
So, do you guys remember in the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air when they went to college?
Yeah.
No.
I loved the school that they went to. It was the University of Los Angeles. It was based on UCLA. They had the Peacock store.
Why didn't they just say UCLA?
I feel like they were
Wait,
weird.
but you're thinking that's bigger than old school?
Yeah, because they spent
fucked up.
multiple seasons at this school, and Tyra Banks ran the cafe. Will was in love with her. Him and Carlton feuded over her for a hot second.
I always found out like that section of the show like pretty dull.
I
Well,
like
it's like if anybody's still watching, they're a dick. That's the way I
The
took it.
college years are always horrifically bad. Because it started in high school, and the college years, the show's successful. I guess we got to keep doing this thing. Like Saved by the Bell, same thing. The college years were shit.
Oh, boy.
Well, I didn't put Saved by the Bell college years on here, so
He got you.
You're actually
like
a
you
little
keep
angry right now, Vito.
yeah. Because I just feel like Chris is being kind of judgmental, and I liked the fresh. I liked his
Nobody else
college
did, though.
experience
Nobody
more
else
than his high school.
Chris, you're never going to get into any of these fictional colleges with that
He's
attitude.
trying.
I feel like I'm getting to Harrison University.
First
You've
of
been
all,
blackballed.
you have no extracurricular. That's for sure.
Oh, God, no.
Your GPA sucks.
All right, let's let Jen do one of these.
Well, I always liked, more of a black college because that's what I could relate to when I was younger.
Okay, good
So
point.
I
You
liked
went
Hillman
for black.
College. Yeah, that's what,
Hillman was Bill Cosby.
Yeah, different world.
yeah, different.
And
world.
then didn't Bill Cosby used to drug all those kids and have sex with them?
That doesn't sound like a college I'd like to go to.
A different world. Hillman College made the list, and I.
So everybody made the list right now except for Chris Kennedy.
You on the list.
Well, you mean
on the list.
You picked a movie no one watched, old school.
Oh, sorry, the fucking indie.
No, it wasn't that. It just,
Same thing.
Hillman.
what was the name of the college from old school? If you liked it so much,
Harrison University in upstate New York. Blow me.
Did you make that up?
Wait, they were in upstate New York?
They're in upstate New York, yeah.
So it's a real school they picked?
No, it was just like, it was based in upstate New York, but it was Harrison, New York. It was Harrison.
When did they ever bring up we're
wait.
in upstate New York?
I don't know. It was from the Wikipedia, they said.
Oh, you cheated
He's
and
over
looked
there.
into Wikipedia?
I knew that. I read the Wikipedia years ago.
And you remembered every word.
Yes.
I'm calling shenanigans on this whole fucking thing. You know what? I'm going to Hillman.
I gotta admit this. This fucking list has really pulled us apart instead of bringing us together.
Seems like our schools are feuding.
All right, now let me just guess on your list. How many? We've done, what, 4?
yes, we got Faber, Hillman, University of Los Angeles, and PCU.
And Harrison, too, right? Is that...
No, Harrison did not make the list.
This is such bullshit. This is insane.
Now, do any of the colleges from this point on, right, are they older or younger than Animal House? Did they come out after Animal House?
They all came out after Animal House. After
And are any of them TV?
yes,
How many?
3.
Okay,
So all of them left are
three.
TV.
All right, so why did you even include Animal House? That was the only non-fucking TV.
PCU was a movie.
Why
as
do
well.
you say have a list of fucking TV shows that took place?
Looks like the two movie watchers make the movie ones.
I know.
We had 2. I just wanted to choose the best fictional colleges that were the centerpiece of the show or movie, unlike old school, where an on-campus house was the main point.
Why don't you just
Dude,
make
that
it?
fucking scene though, when Snoop comes out and all the kids are
yeah.
going fucking crazy.
We're going streaking.
Yeah, it's great.
Bring a green hat.
The movie was based around a fucking
But the
frat.
movie
That
is
was
the
part
heart of the
college.
movie is the frat. The heart of the movie isn't the college.
You could say the same thing though about Animal
Animal
House.
House, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, you scum.
But I feel like you hear the name Faber a lot. We all know the name Faber College, and it starts with them.
We all know and love it.
We all know them.
You seriously, you've got a fake college voice on right now. You're like when the kid is in class and trying to make the professor think that he's at least engaged.
This is sped talk instead of a TED talk.
So what?
Special needs. He's doing.
Oh my
He's been
God.
saving that line. He's tried it a couple times.
It didn't work.
Bosses.
And he's
It's
trying to
gonna work
hide
one
behind
day.
his own
He did
cup.
it once when Don was talking. He goes, Don's the one his sped talks. I'm like, first of all, my cousin's special needs.
Oh my
so
God.
I don't find it to be
Chris,
funny.
why would you say that?
I don't know everyone with special needs.
Well, that's why you don't bring it up.
It's got to be some hot water before.
All right. So do you guys have a guess of the TV shows about college?
Jeez, this is really tough. Because I would have guessed that you said the Saved by the Bell college years.
Saved by the Balls.
The reason I didn't include it was because it was the downfall of the show.
And Fresh Prince. Was
yeah, thank you.
We got a few seasons of The Fresh Prince, and it wasn't a completely different show. Saved by the Bell Collegers was a separate series with none of the main characters intact.
Oh, I have
They
I
were all
have my
pulled
guess.
apart. What is it?
Is it from the show Undeclared?
Oh, great one.
Ooh.
No, I did not
Maybe
include
the
Undeclared.
best college. What? You put together this list without Undeclared?
I felt like one season wasn't enough.
What? It's a legendary
No.
season. Judd Apatow.
It's a great season. I love the show. I didn't feel like one season was enough for my list.
You're not. Your thing is what's the most successful, not what's. It should be what's the fucking coolest.
I love Undeclared. I probably should have put it on the list.
It doesn't even matter. Old School should have went on there.
No,
as well.
I will argue to the end of the day that Old School shouldn't have been on there for the
I don't
reasons
have
I
that
said.
kind of time.
Bullshit.
I mean, it's Friday. I know you guys are going to that wedding. I gotta, I want to get out of town. I don't want to sit around and argue all night.
Just put Old School on the list. Just
No, not for you. I will
It's
put.
up on the iBang already, Chris.
you can edit it. Make me edit.
Why don't we just have a vote on the iBank, whether it belongs there or not?
I like it.
I
You'll
would.
get fucking killed on that
I'll
veto.
get fucking destroyed.
Yeah.
I'll get some
Fuck that,
spite votes. I'll get some real votes.
No, just real votes. All right, so you didn't put it on
admit some
Declare.
of them would be real.
I'm trying to think. I mean, I could just try to guess young shows, but it would be lying. Like I would say, The OC.
Okay,
that a college?
I love the OC, but they went to real colleges in the OC, so I didn't include the
I
OC.
didn't see that fucking show or know the college.
I watched it pretty
So how many
intensely.
shows do you have to watch to get this list?
Sounds like you watched everything but Old School.
Motherfucker.
Why does that make it so mad?
Because it's the obvious guy. Why wouldn't that be on the list?
You had to
He's
read
kinda
the
right
Wikipedia
about
to know
that.
the name. He had to read the Wikipedia.
I no. Look, I love it when Chris is wrong. But Old School is the most popular college thing of the millennium.
But he had to read the Wikipedia to know the name of the college.
Years ago, I read that Wikipedia article.
No, you didn't. I know
I
you.
believe him.
Other than PCU, I'd have to read the Wikipedia on all of these.
Well, did anybody watch the show Community?
No.
No, I
Okay,
didn't watch.
well, that took place at a community college called Greendale, and Greendale Community College made the list.
Yeah, but you're saying when we have to apply to it, don't they have to just take you at a community
That's
college?
more of a commuter school. Like, 'cause I want a college where people are staying.
He is right. They're not staying overnight.
Yeah, there's no dorms.
I think in the show they had dorms, so you're wrong.
Bullshit. That's lies.
In the show, Troy and Abed got a room together. I don't know if it was an apartment. It might have been a dorm, though.
I think it was off-campus apartment.
I have another guess.
Okay.
Okay, is it the college from Coach? Remember Coach?
Oh, yeah. That's fucking great.
So good, right?
Minnesota U.
I never watched Coach.
Fuck.
Oh, this is about you?
This was colleges. I didn't know the show
But
Coach.
why
I'm
don't you
sorry.
just say to yourself, guys, try to guess what I like? That would be different. And then we could be going, oh, you don't like Old School. That's
I love
interesting.
Old School. It's a
No, you
great
don't.
movie. I just felt Coach. I will agree that Coach and Undeclared should have been on there, but I won't agree that Old School should have been on
So
there.
it's just Chris.
Yeah, it's just me.
No, it's not. That has nothing
Dauber's
to do
getting the
with.
shaft right now.
Why'd you do it to Dauber? By the way, I
want your
fucking loved Coach. I loved that show.
Well, Dauber made the fucking show,
Yeah.
and so did Jerry Van Dyke.
Yeah, he was great on it.
When Tom Rhodes, man, I shouldn't tell somebody else's story, but I'm going to. Tom Rhodes had his show, Mr. Rhodes. It was right next to Coach, right? And they heard Jerry Van Dyke running a fucking batch to some porn. It was back like when you literally had to have porn tapes, and they heard him say, "Jeez, I hate fake tits."
Just wanted the real thing.
Well, I believe that to be a true story. I have no right to it.
I believe it.
I'd like to get out of this shitty fucking list of yours, though, Vito.
All right, I can give you another one. Remember the show Boy Meets World? They went to Pembroke,
Oh, okay.
and in that Mr. Feeney went with them to
Right.
Pembroke. You know, it was a fun.
That was such a stretch, though, when you think of it.
I mean, he was their teacher every year of school, so that itself was a stretch.
Here's the thing. It's not a college show if you suddenly move them over and they're in college. Not when you take like an old school where it was
Right.
fucking literally an old school.
Right?
But they spent a lot of time in the college, hanging out on the campus on Boy Meets World. They went to class. They lived in dorms. And my point about Old School is that you really only stayed
I'll
at this
say
house.
This fucking list stinks.
I will say this to you also. I would not have put that on the list just because of what Mr. Feeney did to Liam.
That
molested him?
On Liam's birthday, Mr. Feeney was here at Sirius XM, and Liam decided he wanted to take a picture with Mr. Feeney. And Vito took the picture, and I've never seen a person look less happy to take a picture. Like, it's not nice, the face that Mr. Feeney is making.
And Liam was excited to meet him. Liam was like, I'm going to go up to him. I'm going to get his picture. I took it for him. And then this is what Liam got in return.
This is what he gets.
It's just not right.
Can I just say this? Did Liam see this picture of himself?
Yes.
What did he say?
He was very upset with it. He said, Mr. Feeney ruined my birthday because that was on Liam's birthday.
This is all Liam needs to know, that he's a nerd. Now, who is what's the guy's real name?
William Daniels.
All right, so he's been around for a long time. He was the voice of the car in that
Knight Rider.
Knight Rider.
Right,
he was
yeah.
Knight Rider. He was also maybe Doogie Howser's fucking boss or something like that. He's been around for a long, long time. Maybe he's just elderly and doesn't want to be anywhere.
Well, it was when I took the picture for him, I watched him stand up and then immediately while I'm trying to take the picture, just look away and not look at it. Then I was like, I'm going to run away from here. I don't want to be involved with this. And Liam goes, hey, Vito, don't you want a picture with him also? And it was just an awful moment where I had to go around him myself and get my picture too.
You took a dull story and turned it into boring.
It was a rough day for me and Liam.
And me now, because I had to hear it.
The point is, Mr. Feeney ruined his birthday.
It was his birthday.
Boy Meets World is one of those shows where I think it's like a cultural touchstone for everyone in my generation, except for me. I don't know why, but I never watched that show. And that was one of those things that, to this day, if people my age get together, like, remember that episode of Boy Meets World? Nope. I never watched that show.
Well, was Topanga on that show?
Yeah.
Topanga was on the
she
show.
was in here, I'm going to guess it was like 5-6 years ago.
Around there, yeah.
And the fucking guys in this building went ape shit. And they all lined up for pictures like I've never seen. And it was a line of pup tents. Because she had giant tits.
Yeah.
I don't know whether she had when she was a little girl, but as a woman, gigantic tits.
Yeah. I think she was always had like just a developed sexiness.
I
about
said
her.
to her, I go, I never saw your show, but I like to get a picture next to those tits. And she goes, thank you for being honest. All right, what else you got?
And the last college on the list is
That we ever do, ever.
it was from a show called Blue Mountain State for the self-titled college Blue Mountain State.
I hate Vito.
This was a
Why?
What's Blue Mountain State?
Oh, you never heard of it?
What is this show?
Well, Blue Mountain State is West Virginia, right?
in this it was supposed to be a Pennsylvania school.
Well, why would you call the Blue Mountain fucking State is West Virginia?
Yeah, in this they had a different.
Well, why not do it? How about Keystone University? And I put it West Virginia. And then everybody's fucking confused. What was it, a football school?
It was a football show. It was on Spike, and it was
Spike. Is that even TV?
it was Spike TV.
Spike Awards?
And it was it was a show just about people like college football players and drinking and partying.
Did anybody say this? I don't want your laugh.
No, it was Varsity Blues.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, did they say it again?
Did they say it?
I don't think they did in that
So
show.
this was the name of the college was Spike.
No, the name of the college was Blue Mountain State.
Spike doesn't even sound like a good college.
It's not Spike. Spike is the network. It was
Well,
on-
I guess I'll have to go to Spike. I can't get in anywhere else. All right. Now, if this was college, what would you give your letter grade on your list? Because you were so excited at it. You know what? You hit a wall with Chris, and you couldn't get around it.
Yeah, Chris didn't want to see me succeed at all.
No, I just wanted
Well, his
fucking
dream came true then.
finally satisfied. Old school needs to be on the list. Change
Drop the fucking old school thing.
No one knows what Blue Mountain State, the TV show
Really?
is.
A lot of people did. It got a crowdfunded fucking movie.
All right. Let's, first of all, let's not
I hate
fight.
when people reaction. He just went, ooh.
I hate when people scream. A lot of people do it, get a crowdfunding.
Look, they're both wrong. I'll give
Yeah.
you that. They're both 1,000% wrong.
What if you could tell somebody you went to some school? Like, what would be your proudest school to tell people you went to? Jen Hillman still? Where would you like to tell them you went?
I would probably go with the Boy Meets World school.
No, in real life. I'm talking.
You mean just like in real
Yeah,
world
in
college?
real life. Like, we'll come back to you. I'll let Vito go.
NYU, I always really was kind of jealous of those kids. I feel like I was 10 blocks away from them. They all looked really happy that they went to NYU.
I don't think you're Asian enough to go to that school. All right, what about you? Yeah.
I would say the arts college in Rhode Island, I always thought was really, what is it, RISD?
RISD.
Yeah.
I always thought, just like, they've got a cool history, it's got a cool vibe about it.
I think there's only two schools that you got to say, Yale or Harvard. And for some reason, I think I'd rather say I went to Yale than went to Harvard.
Really?
Yeah. The idea of Harvard, it seems like a stick up the ass. Where Yale seems like, oh, Meryl Streep went here.
Right.
We still get fucking high. We have some fun. All right, Chris, what about for you?
Cambridge, I think, would be pretty fantastic. What's so funny about that? It's like the Harvard of England.
I swear to God, I thought you were going to say West Point. I would have been so proud if you went around a line and told people you went to West Point. All right, Jen, now you got the feeling here.
Okay, I would go with UVA, University of Virginia.
Anybody can get in there.
Because a lot of no,
Just
it's like a really good-
Can I say Arizona State?
a lot of my friends went there.
Yeah.
And it's like a super, like, great school for, like, everything. Like, it's such a smart school. Like, I feel like they get a lot of respect whenever they tell somebody they went to UVA.
I've never heard. I met people too that went there, and I go like this. What did you need? A pen to get in?
This is like of schools that I applied to. I had applied to Cal Arts on the West Coast, and 90% of the reason that I applied there, like, I thought it was a cool art school and it seemed like it had cool vibes, but I literally read a thing that you could bring your dog to class and that you could have dogs on campus, and I'm like, well, I must love dogs, so I'm definitely applying. Like, I didn't even have a dog that I was gonna bring. I was like gonna be like, go to college and get a dog. So most of it was dog related.
That fucking college looks like they don't even care if you can bring a dog to class. You just, like, what kind of lecture you're going to hear a bunch of dogs, 30 dogs bark? I'd be just like, you know what, guys? Just read this fucking chapter.
These dogs the fuck out of this class.
The embarrassing thing is, I can remember, like, it was like junior year. I was like showing off the brochure, like, look at these fucking dudes all hanging out with their dogs. It looks fucking great. And like, the professor had a dog. Everyone had one.
Could you please shut the dogs up? Okay? I'm trying to tell you how to do brain surgery, and the dogs are fucking barking through it.
Meanwhile, like, people are like bragging about where they got into. I'm like, yeah, I'm still waiting to hear back from that dog college. They're like, Cal Arts? It's a pretty prestigious art school.
Now,
Yeah, but you've seen all the dogs there, right?
now, out of all of us that picked, I gotta say Chris Stanley made the best pick.
That's right.
And yet the least amount of
Cambridge.
chance to get in.
Oh, come on.
First of all, he got thrown out.
I think you should try dog college. But I mean a college for dogs.
In high school, I did apply to MIT for some. The fuck was I thinking?
Do you do math?
No. I don't know why I applied for it.
What were you hoping to major in?
I don't know.
He saw the movie Real Genius. It looked like a blast. He's like, yeah, why wasn't that fucking school in there? The Real Genius school.
Fuck.
With the popcorn and all that.
I've never seen Real Genius.
What the fuck? And you're dumb enough to make up a fucking list and you don't even see the best college?
Is it fictional?
Yes, very fictional.
The popcorn thing sounds legit.
Dude, they fucking blow up a house with nothing but popcorn. How do you not see this fucking movie?
It's a great movie.
I'll watch it tonight.
The song's in it.
I know the song.
You fucking dope.
Is this enough to convince you? You fuck.
I thought that I was wired today. He is.
No, he's
wired.
weird, and I think he's getting under everyone's skin today.
You know what is true of Chris? He got worse with this new girlfriend.
Do you think of Chris as just a real life troll?
Oh, yeah. He should live on
He's like an He's like an internet troll come to life.
Yes.
He's trolling us.
He's a meme. Coming up a little later on, we're doing that town hall with Eddie Izzard, and Vito got him to sign a poster.
We got our nice Eddie Izzard poster. It's awesome. Tweet at Eddie Izzard and tweet at the Bennington Show. So you can be the first responder, and I'll send you that poster.
I'll send you you make it seem like if they're the first. You just pick one out, though, right?
Well, yeah. And
Your
then
favorite.
The
I
best
pick
of
out
the
my
first.
favorite tweet,
Yeah.
and then I send them the poster that I got signed.
It's great. Do me a favor. Everybody clear the room when Donald Fagan gets here, because he does not suffer fools gladly, and you're a bunch of fools.
Yeah,
okay?
he does have the reputation. I'm definitely going to get Chris out of here.
I will say this is my 4th time with Donald Fagan, and I'm still feeling like, holy shit, that's Donald Fagan. That's how much I love that man.
That's real rock star status then.
Yes.
When you
And
have
also,
that.
he doesn't love back. So that's...
Now you understand how ladies feel that way. When the men seem like not that interested.
then they like it more and more.
Why? What's wrong with me?
Yeah, but I don't think I like him. I like him because of his achievements, not even his
Right.
personality or anything else. He's an achiever. The tour that he's going to be doing, Donald Fagan and the Night Flyers will be touring across the United States and Japan starting in August. I think there's also some Steely Dan dates. Tour begins for the Night Flyers August 3rd and 4th at the Capitol Theater in Portchester. Let's start off something from the Night Flyer album too, Chris. Let's bring him into that. What do you got?
This is New Frontier off The Nightfly by Donald Fagan.
Donald Fagan is in studio with us. Donald Fagan and the Night Flyers will be touring across the United States and Japan starting in August. Good to see you, my friend.
Nice to see you.
Now, you're out on the road with us with some young guys this time.
Yeah, kids. They're in their 20s.
Yeah.
They talk to their cell phones a lot and all that kind of stuff like that there.
How did that come about? You played with some of the greatest musicians of, your generation, and now you're going out with these young guys.
Well, yeah, I wanted to... Steely Dan, basically, we mainly do Steely Dan material, and I wanted to do some of my own stuff. It's kind of a mix of Steely Dan stuff I like, and some of stuff from my 4 solo albums, and also some covers and fun stuff. you know.
Yeah. What is it about playing cover songs that's still cool to you at this time?
Because, when you're playing your own stuff, you're so familiar with it, it can get get stale, or you have to, in fact, we make sure we mess around with the arrangements, so they're still fun too.
Yeah.
But cover stuff is great because it's like it's new to you when you're doing it. We're doing like some Chuck Berry tune, and we're doing a Beatles tune, just for fun. And it's also, it's a challenge because I'm used to, singing my own compositions, and Walter and myself, stuff we wrote. So it's different,
Well, the thing, it's always amazing to me that a cover song can suddenly hit you differently when somebody.
Yeah, and we're not doing anything straight, like the way the original sounds were. For one thing, it's fun to take R&B type material, which usually is just triads, just simpler chords. And since I come from a jazz background, it's always fun to add some added notes, and juice it up a little bit, and maybe change the beat.
I always think it's interesting too that a lot of people who started in jazz ended up in R&B. When you look at a lot of the musicians who played at Motown, they had that jazz background.
They were started as jazz players. The what do they call themselves? The Funk Brothers.
Yeah, the Funk Brothers were, and I don't know whether they called themselves that at the time.
Yeah, I think that was a later edition. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also think the same thing happened with the Wrecking Crew in Los Angeles, that they never thought of themselves as the Wrecking Crew.
No, they were the session guys who came in and played. Yeah.
What? But and And you always, of course, were on the lookout for session guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what is it that makes somebody like a great session player? What is it that you would be looking for?
Well, a lot of time it's the ability to play different kinds of music because we use jazz harmony and sometimes it made it certainly very convenient if they could sight read. And most session guys are good sight readers, except for, of course, for the guitar players.
Yeah.
No, some of them are too, actually. But they're quick. They're the reason people hire the sort of A team of session people is because they come up with good ideas for that. They understand the idea. They understand the difference between a song and a record. What we used to call a record, which has to do with the arrangement and the putting in little things, little hooks, instrumental hooks and things, and a great session guy can make your piece.
And then, of course, a bad session guy, you just got to go, this is a lost day. A
lot of the time, yeah. A lot of the time, or you could always just like mute his track.
But there seems to also be somewhat of a shelf life to when the session guy is an A team. Like if you look at it, guys that were big in the 60s were kind of replaced by other guys in the 70s.
Yeah, a lot of time that has to do with the fact that the style of music has changed.
Yeah.
Various trends and like I noticed, the sort of great players, say in New York, who played on soul records and R&B records. When I'll tell you exactly when it changed. It happened when Sly and the Family Stone started playing, because their music, I don't want to get technical, but it was based on more dividing the quarter note into 16th notes rather than eighth notes, and they weren't as comfortable doing that as some of the newer players. It was interesting.
And then at that moment that everybody hears Sly's record, they're like, I want my record to start and sound.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Producers, when that happened, it was essentially, it actually comes from James Brown originally, perhaps, but it was the idea of, now I want a funk record rather than a soul record.
And that's always interesting to me too, is like the fact that sometimes we talk about people being ahead of their time, but the times change immediately as soon as that person shows up.
Paradigm shift, they call it. Yeah.
Where you couldn't hear, let's say, an 80s record in the 60s. Like it wouldn't be in anybody's mind. Like somehow,
it's an evolution. Yeah, for sure. Just like everything. Literature or films, it's, there may be a few exceptions from someone who's ahead of their time. But generally speaking, it's an evolution.
Also, like you said, you're going out with these young guys today in their 20s. It's always amazing to me that how much that these guys know music from so many more decades than I did growing up.
Well, these particular guys do. They're sort of fans of all kinds of music, especially R&B from the 50s and 60s. They're used to doing shows, sort of tribute shows and stuff to various musicians from different periods. So they're really, good listeners.
And these are guys that you just bumped into up in the Hudson Valley, right?
Well, first of all, my stepdaughter Amy Helm also lives up in Woodstock, and her dad Levon used to have these Saturday night rambles at his house, and I would sit in when I was in town with that bunch, which was tremendous fun. And sometimes I'd see some of these guys would sit in also, and then there was like every year in Woodstock they have this Dylan tribute night on his birthday. It's like Dylan's birthday show or whatever. And I think the first time I saw this group, which was the Connor Kennedy group, they were calling it, and I thought, wow, these guys are good,
Yeah.
And so we started playing a little together, just informal stuff. I think we did some stuff with Amy at one point. And in fact, we're rehearsing right now at Levon's old barn,
Right.
which is sounds really good and it's fun. You know, it's got a lot of history. You know,
I went to see Levon one night. It was fairly close to the end, and he couldn't sing. And
Yeah.
and you came in. It was in Bridgeport, and
Bridgeport, right?
yeah,
right,
you
right,
came
right.
in, and I'm like, oh, how's this gonna work together? And it was. I mean, at first you're like disappointed that you weren't going to hear Levon sing, but it ended up being one of the most amazing shows.
Yeah,
It
and
was
there's a bunch of singers.
Yeah.
They had Teresa,
Yeah.
and Larry Campbell.
Yeah,
And Amy would sing, and then my specialty was to sing King Harvest, which is
Right.
an old Richard Manuel tune, and it was really fun. you know?
yeah, it was really great, and it was amazingly joyful. Like
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
you know, you're worried about him and of course his health, but you just saw how much fun he was having.
Yeah, he and Amy are very extremely ebullient people, and my wife Libby also, who's Amy's mother, is like that too. They kind of walk into a room and they're stars.
Right, yeah, there's that thing. Yeah, well, Libby's kind of famous for bringing a lot of scenes together, introducing people, and but how strange was it for you to feel so connected to her ex? Was that ever like...
Well, they were at odds for quite a number of years. There was a custody trial, I think, in the 70s, and but they, reconciled with each other and straightened all that out, in I guess the 90s when we were both living there, and of course Amy would move from our place over to Levon's place, and they're a mom and dad, so it made sense for them to make up,
Yeah.
and they got along great, actually. Especially towards the end,
Robbie just put out his book, Robbie Robertson, and it's that was an amazing time for music, and of course,
yeah, for sure,
and it's your time as well. When you see how many changes took place between the late 50s, early 60s, up into the late 70s, were you picking up on that at the time? Did it feel like every time a new record came out, there was
actually, yeah, I was a graduate of high school in '65. So in high school, when I was a kid, I was a jazz fan pretty much, but I really got into Bob Dylan and the Stones and the Beatles and all that towards the end of high school, and there was actually two basic trends, and I thought that jazz was becoming very political then because it was more connected to the civil rights movement directly, and especially when there was a lot of militant stuff happening after Martin Luther King was shot. The music became angry and more dissonant and avant-garde, and I can understand the anger, and I even like some of the music, like Albert Ayler and people like that. But at the same time, that's when rock and roll was maturing, and there were all these really creative people, doing things with that. So that's how I kind of, it kind of blurred.
Yeah.
And I kind of switched over for a while. Yeah.
Well, even then, I mean, if you look at the early 60s, about the time that you graduated, 2 years later, the entire world seems like a different place.
That's
like
true,
65 to 67.
Well, yeah, a lot of it had to do with the Beatles.
Yeah.
What they brought, not just musically, but kind of culturally, and, as far as their place in the sort of social grid, they were free. And coming out of a very conservative period of the late 50s and early 60s, both here and in England, they, brought something really, it was like breathing a sigh of relief, after all this sort of conformism,
Well, London, I mean, even in the early 60s, there was still rubble from the war.
for sure.
There was still rationing, and there was never, I think particularly in London, there was never something that we would think of as youth. You know what I mean?
Right.
It used to be guys would, at 13 or 14, you would find out where you would work in the factory, and that would be
right.
your life. But the fact that this kind of joyful new music, and so many of them coming over at the same time. But also what I find fascinating is so many of them were just saying, no, blues is where it's at, R&B is where it's at. And they were kind of teaching America about their own music.
That's true because, essentially America at that time was still basically segregated and the music was segregated. To hear, at least up until the very early 60s, you had to listen to a black R&B station to hear that music. And I guess with Alan Freed and Dick Clark and people like that actually started exposing some of the other kind of music.
Yeah, the fact that a lot of people thought those songs were Pat Boone's, the people that weren't necessarily in the music, and just hearing these Pat Boone covers, and they're like, oh, that Pat Boone seems like a nice boy. But in the meantime, there was a whole scene.
Yeah, you had Bo Diddley, you had Little Richard, and, Ray Charles. I mean, actually predated them by a bit, and it changed the world.
It did indeed change the world. Donald Fagan and the Night Flyers, they're going to be touring across the United States and Japan starting in August. The tour begins August 3rd and 4th at the Capitol Theater in Port Chester, New York. The last 10 years or so, been still kind of touring on a couple of different projects. Well, Steely Dan still tours almost every summer to some extent, sometimes a lot. We've been doing some great tours with great openers like Steve Winwood and Elvis Costello and so on, and they're really fun and very successful. And then for a couple years, I had this alternative band. It was called the what was it called? The Dukes of September. Yeah.
And that was me, Michael McDonald, and Boz Skaggs, and that was really, really fun for me.
It was an amazing show to see, too, because you guys were each doing hits from each of your career, and at the same time bringing in R&B songs that you guys grew up on.
The idea was we were doing stuff that got us into the music business in the first place when we were young. We were doing some Ray Charles. Mike would, kill these Ray Charles songs, and Boz was doing some Chuck Berry and so on. It was really fun.
But no plans to do that?
You never know. That's a kind of ad hoc thing. If we have if we don't have anything really going for the summer, or they want a break, we call each other.
Yeah. But is that kind of a spinoff of the rock and soul shows that you were doing in New York years ago?
Yeah, actually, the very same principles were involved in the, I guess it was in the 80s, late 80s and early 90s. It's actually my wife's idea for this New York rock and soul show. And we started like in restaurants and things like that, and then moved to the Lone Star for a while, and eventually we toured for a couple of years with some great players. We had Phoebe Snow, poor Phoebe, and Boz and Mike, and some really terrific players. Charles Brown.
Yeah, I always remember Michael McDonald cutting "Lonely Teardrops," and I'm like, I never thought there could be another version of that song that could be pulled off, and he just slayed it. He was just unbelievable.
They actually used it in a film. They played it for a long time. What was that film? It was Leaving Las Vegas.
Oh yeah. I forgot about that film too.
Yeah.
But these young guys that you got touring with you now, have they done a tour of this size before, or?
Not really. They play around Woodstock. They've toured the country on their own. I think they went out with Amy Helm for a while. And they've supported a lot of people who come through Woodstock. You know, they're kind of the first string band when other people come in.
What is it about an area that could keep a scene going on like that for decades and decades? It's always surprising to me.
Well, Woodstock's always had a number of musicians who lived there. It started, as a kind of art colony. It actually started as a kind of utopian village up in Birdcliff, started by an English industrialist named Ralph Whitehood, and that was like in the beginning of the last century, 1902, something like that. And I think when Bob Dylan moved to Woodstock, that was how a lot of the R&B people and all that started moving in, because at the time he was a god.
He was, yeah.
First mid 60s.
Yeah. Well, that was like a shocker, I think, to that generation, that a guy could write that way lyrically.
No one had ever done that before, and also just his his innovations, especially combining essentially folk and rock and roll, and his bizarre phases of the singing style and all that was really astounding. What he did.
And then
a lot of people now they might not know those records. Younger people, like Highway 61 or Bringing It All Back Home, Blonde on Blonde. These were so radical, really, at the time, that it's hard to really explain what it was like, because all these decades later, with people learn from other people and imitate other people, and it's sort of like a playing telephone or something like that, but when he started that, it's like you might be used to some of the stylistic thing he does by now, but then it was like came out of nowhere, essentially.
Well, there's always a lot of talk that we're 50 years outside of Sgt. Pepper, and then last year it was 50 years of Pet Sounds with the Beach Boys.
Summer of Love this year.
Yeah, Summer of Love, 50 years on.
Which I didn't call it Summer of Love at the time, but
nobody know it.
It was just, let's run away from home.
Right. But I also think that there's something like that thing is still changing, because I was just reading stuff that this is the first generation of people retiring that are still willing to experiment with drugs. You know what I mean? Like, if there's a new drug out, that generation, the same people that were in hate, were like, yeah, I'll give Molly a try.
For both good or ill.
But so there is something that's still moving along on the planet. And the fact that if you look back in 1967, how many people would have been listening to the music of 1927? That was something that just didn't.
I was, but I was kind of a very sick person.
Right, you were considered odd for being interested. But now you could come up to any kid, and they do know who Cream is, or they do know who the band is. Yeah. But do you think that you still run into kids that aren't aware of that? Because I think stuff like YouTube keeps people.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I think maybe more and more. Music from different times is accepted, like the way it's kind of accepted in the UK. They don't sort of care when something was recorded or as much.
But I also think that there's something different about that when you could get exposed to the lifetime of an artist. Like when we were younger, if you wanted to listen to Miles Davis, you were going to get an album, and then maybe 6 months later you'd get a second album by him. Where now you could say to someone, well, check out Miles Davis, and they could listen to everything.
That's right.
Over a course of a weekend, and you're like, well, that's not the way you're supposed to listen to that.
Well, that's something I've noticed, is that the and in fact, it gives me a different view of history, because when you live through a time, you get to see the evolution of a style or
Right.
evolution. And when younger people listen to it, they always have it all mixed up, like what came first. And
Yeah.
what, and it's kind of that really applies. When you think that applies to all history, it's like talk about playing telephone.
Yeah.
Who knows what happened?
Right.
It's like there's always there has to be something really wrong with every narrative.
Sure. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Like you really, once you've been around enough to see that, at no point do you think, can I believe any biography? You know what I mean? And if you see the amount of biographies on a Elvis Presley and see how different they are, you're like, well, what did they do with the Bible?
Yeah.
If they made that many, kind of different versions of that. Donald Fagan and the Night Flyers will be touring across the United States and Japan in August. The tour begins the 3rd and 4th at the Capitol Theater in Port Chester, New York. You can go to Ticketmaster.com for tickets and dates. Do you expect the set list to change as you guys are on the road with this, or?
Yeah, we have maybe we've run down so far maybe 30 tunes, and that's you can get kind of mix and match out of that, and we're learning new songs all the time, so we'll see what happens. I haven't really decided exactly.
Well, I think it's really cool, and I can't imagine the experience for these guys to be out with you like that, so that's great. Donald Fagan, always great to see you, my
All right,
friend.
thanks a lot.
And I'll see you next time coming
All
through.
right.
Bennington is back, and we've got the Eddie Izzard Town Hall coming up in just a moment. We've also got the poster signed by Eddie Izzard. We're going to give that out to first responders, so tweet at Bennington Show and at Eddie Izzard to be a winner. The signed poster. I'm very excited to hear this town hall, because this is actually my first time hearing it, because I missed it.
Yes, you did miss it. This was the day of your accident.
Yes, I was in a cab on the FDR Drive and ended up missing. This is my first time missing one since I joined the team, so I'm very excited to hear it.
It's well, he's a really brilliant, interesting guy, so I think everybody is going to dig it. And Vito, you got to wait for them to win the poster you got signed.
Yeah, you're going to tweet at the Bennington Show, and you're going to tweet at Eddie Izzard for the first responders. I'm going to pick out what I think is the best tweet, and I'm going to send you this poster I got signed. It's a beautiful poster, and you're going to love it.
I thought we would just give it to Gail after her accident.
I know.
But
Did
you, by the way, did you notice none of your friends from the show even cared that you didn't make that?
I did notice.
No.
I did notice that none of my friends cared. I didn't get any texts or nothing.
Well, they were working. I will give them that. They put the show first. Why shouldn't I?
I understand.
Yeah.
The show goes on. Literally, that's an
Every
example.
war, a soldier goes down, but you just gotta, you guys focus on taking that hill. In this case, the hill was the great Eddie Izzard, who, is such a brilliant guy, and this is exciting. So, all right, so it's Town Hall with Eddie Izzard. Be a first responder after and pick up the signed poster. Town Hall with Eddie Izzard. Eddie Izzard. The new book, Believe Me.
Yes.
Believe Me.
Well, exactly. I mean, the title. About 5 people came up with the title because it's a bit of a mixture of words and things, and there's not a mention of jazz chickens in the entire book, which was in the previous strip show, which was a chicken that did play jazz. But I think seeing as there's a documentary, Believe, and that was the Sarah Townsend version of the director's version of Believe, and this is the me version of Believe. That's how I've worked it out. It's the me believe me, as opposed to Believe Me. Really, honestly, this is true. But yeah, I think everything in there is true. You just think sometimes, so
It feels true.
I might have got a date wrong, a date
Yeah.
wrong.
Well, you start in 1968, and that's kind of the year that changed everything for you.
Yeah. Mum died in 68, and I thought I needed to write about it. It's 4 pages, I think, and it took me about 50 years to write it. And that's the only thing I wrote with my fingers. I just sat down and wrote it, but I blocked. Well, it was just a weird day. But anyway, if you read it, you will see it. Or it's on the audiobook as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a bit tougher.
Yeah, and of course, it's something, to learn that at a young age, but everyone learns it sooner or later. It's one of those scars that just doesn't heal.
Yeah, I didn't know. I knew about getting ill. Mm-hmm. And, as a kid, you get ill. Oh, this is ill. And then, then you get better. You get ill, you get better. And that's what I thought Mum was. And then, no. So, yeah, that's that for me and my brother and my dad. It's just a baseball bat to the stomach, the head, the whatever. It just knocks you sideways. And I think other people have gone through worse things in life. There have been worse things than that. So that's the only way I can put it in perspective, is other people. I mean, the Holocaust, people went through Second World War, people went through entire families disappearing. So I should just, you just have to get on with life.
Yeah, you do have to get on with life, and everybody that has something happen like that has to get on with life, whether, but for that little boy, it's his Holocaust, it's his World War II.
Yeah. Yeah, it affected me, and I say that I think my performing comes from that. The mum was a very, she was mummy when she died. Was a very loving woman to me and my brother and my father, and then she disappeared. And maybe the audience is a substitute. If I can do good things and the audience goes, "Hey, that's good," then maybe that's substitute love. I think it's where it started, but it's interesting. I think it's a healthy way of dealing with it, because the audience is not unconditional. If you do bad work, the audience will go, "Well, no love today." That was a bad piece of entertainment creativity. So, yeah.
Well, that can be an English mom, though, right?
What?
No love today.
Is that English? No, isn't that just humans? I don't think that's anyone.
Yeah.
Because there was a polar bear in Germany. Here you go. This is a weird one. There was a polar bear in Germany, and this mother polar bear had a kid and then ate her child. Not good.
Yeah.
And then had a second child. I don't know who the daddy polar bear is, in the Berlin Zoo. And then they took the mother away. They separated from the child, and this small polar bear became a big hit in the Berlin Zoo. Everyone came because it was just cute. Polar bears are cute up to a certain age, I think, up to about 4 or 5. And so he was this tiny polar bear and very interested. And then he's now huge. He's still at the Berlin Zoo, but he's massive and scary polar bear style. So I don't know, what does that prove? That proves that, yes, not all the mother thing might not be an but you mentioned it was an English idea. I think we can have American mothers. Well, you always think that your parents, I think, or your family is exactly the same as everyone else's family. That if you get on with a brother or don't get on with a sister, mother, father, you think that everyone else is doing the same thing. But in fact, it can be different. Families can just be completely different, right next door and right next door and right next, just down the street, they could be completely different. So that was weird. It took me a long time to work that out. Well,
I think also because you lost your mom at an early age, it gives critics somewhat of a shorthand on psychoanalyzing you, your act, your style, everything.
Or transgender.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I have had an argument on British, on a chat show where someone said, "Well, your mother died, that's why you're transgender." And I went, "Nah." And they just insisted. Said, "Yes." No. Why are you so sure? Just so, I knew beforehand, and so this is just my gift of sexuality, as we all, well, I say in the book, I think everyone, I mean, I don't believe in a floating guy upstairs who's controlling everything. If so, why Trump? Why Brexit and Trump hate? Why are those things going on if there is a God? And he's going, I don't care. But I think we get given these cards, these genetic cards, and we have to deal with them however we can. And so everyone gets given a hand of cards, gradually realize, oh, I'm quite good at this, I'm not good at that, I'm very bad at that, I'm brilliant at this, and we play them how we can through life. It is, and you can get dealt really tough cards. I mean, being transgender in the end is quite a brilliant card to be given, but you've got to come out about it. Kids around the world, you have to come out. That's the only way you can work out how to be positive about alternative sexuality, as I call it.
But you bring up in the book that's a long process sometimes.
Yes.
For you, it was.
Well, I came out at 23 in 1985, and I got no front page cover of the Anglian Times or anything. It wasn't very cool in 85 or 90 or 95 or 2000 or 2005. You know, it's now getting almost kind of, hey, you're transgender, everyone's transgender. Can I be transgender? No, I'm afraid. It's a very wannabe area and everyone's applying, but I'm afraid you have to have the genetic gift of your genes. So,
but you know, you did kind of come of age during the glam 70s.
Yes, and that wasn't. I couldn't access that at all. I knew because we also had another glam rock kind of period that happened at the beginning of the 80s as well. And I knew that if I went into it in rock and roll. And I sort of, because music wasn't my first love, comedy and film were my first loves. And if I went into it, it would seem like a fashion, because glam rock happened, and then glam rock went away. And a lot of the people from glam rock, even David Bowie, moved away a lot from makeup, except for in Labyrinth he had makeup on, but I was wondering, is he happy about wearing the makeup? I didn't know where David was at the end, but I think he tried to put sort of clear blue water between that and saying that was just a phase, that wasn't really my sexuality, and that's not really me. Whereas I knew it was me, and I didn't want it to be a theatrical thing, you know, sort of, hey, I do this, and no, I don't do this, because I knew that this was built in.
But Bowie really did stay confusing about it, too. Even, like, when he decided just to be in suits for 20 years, you're like, is this a character? We never really know.
No, I felt towards the end that was him. I felt he, you know, he said he was uncomfortable in his skin. He was happy at playing Ziggy, playing characters, and then he could really express himself. And I think he gradually got easier in his skin at being himself, and I think the last 15, 20 years that was more him on stage, and he didn't have to, because he had, hey, it's David Bowie, you know, you didn't have to do anything to say to get that attention. Initially, just to break through into the citadel of profile, as I call it, you have to do some sort of crazy things quite often to break through into that, and he was obviously already inside it then.
But, you know, coming out, you know, at least in your specials, there was such confidence in you on stage. And I thought that was amazing. Is that something that had to be worked up to that, though?
Do you mean confidence at the performing, or confidence at wearing makeup and also performing?
And also performing.
No, because I didn't even know. Once you don't know what you look like once you're performing. Yeah. Because you don't have a mirror there. You go, otherwise, if I was performing and there was mirrors there, and I'd be going, ooh, I'm looking like that. Ooh. Or if there was a monitor screen, I could well be reacting and going, ooh, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have pulled that face. So yeah, that was it. It was just because I came through, and people in America probably don't know this, or they might be able to sense it, is that when I arrived in America, I just thought I'd already come out in Britain, and I'd already arrived in Britain as a white male middle class stand-up doing very surreal Python-esque stuff. That was my niche, my area, was it's so surreal. And then I thought, I better tell everyone I'm transgender, transvestite, whatever, because the language has changed over the years. I was TV when I first came out, TV for transvestite. And I thought I'd better tell everyone, otherwise I will be hiding behind this, or it'll be a lie that will continue through my life. And that's why it came out. And then people said, well, you're just talking about it. You're not wearing any. I thought, okay, I'll put some makeup on, I'll do it. Then I looked a mess, and then I had to get the look together. And by the time I came to America, I thought, I'm not going to do this in 2 goes. I won't arrive, prove my stand-up credentials, and then say, and also next tour, I'm transgender, by the way. You know, it just seemed like a lot of work. So I thought, I'll do it all in one package. And then people, I think, thought, oh, he's arrived because he's wearing makeup. That's how he got known. But it wasn't. And then I think some people would turn up to see a very theatrical showy performance that was linked to costume and makeup, and I didn't do it. I didn't change costume. I just talked a lot of crap for hour and a half, 2 hours.
That to me was one of the most amazing things about when you came over, because you talked very little about that.
About sexuality, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It was, I could talk to about it obliquely. I worked out that if I just say, sometimes, I did say sometimes, I've gone into a shop and people look at me and they go, what? And I go, can I have a Mars bar? And they go, Mars bar? You want to put lipstick on the Mars bar? No, I'm going to eat the Mars bar. Have you got money? How could you people can't have money? Yeah, I've got money. I work. You really got money. You live in a cave, don't you? So, so I would do that, and people's reactions to that. But generally, I just talk about squirrels with guns and chickens taking over the world. And then people go, oh, it doesn't seem to be much about makeup.
Yeah, but I thought that was one of the amazing things. You know what I mean?
I think that was accidentally amazing.
Yeah.
It was just that I was quite insistent on saying this isn't a performance about how I look. This is just me expressing myself how I look, and I can be boy mode or girl mode from day to day, from gig to gig, and then I will talk a lot of surreal, very Python-influenced stand-up. It is essentially Monty Python, what I'm doing, except I developed this narrator, which all our stand-ups, we have to have the narrator who says, so, also, budgerigars, what's going on there? Cliffs, walls, chalk. Oh, can we eat chalk and cheese? Can you eat cheese? Can you eat chalk? You can eat cheese. So you have to have the narrator who takes you through until you get into an interesting scene to play.
But Python was a wake-up call for you as a kid.
Yeah, what I call it, I always feel wake-up call is more like something that shocks you into changing the way of life. I would say it's more of a revelation. But also, there was a thing called The Goons, a radio show called The Goons. Peter Sellers, people in America will know Peter Sellers. Spike Milligan, you may not know of, but he was really the godfather of alternative comedy for us because Ernie Kovacs was coming through in the 50s.
In the late 50s, yes.
50s, and he was doing very weird, surreal stuff.
Yeah, he was doing very strange things, most of it very visual for TV.
So you had Ernie Kovacs coming through. We had Spike Milligan, Peter Sellers, and they were doing radio stuff, and the Pythons all listened to the radio stuff of this thing called The Goon Show, which I think you should be able to get online in America, but it's very interesting because it's just these weird stories. They all went through the World War II, and then they came out taking the piss out of military people and high-ranking authority and all this stuff, and so the Pythons listened to them, and then I listened to the Pythons and the Goons at the same time. That was the weird thing. So I got these two injections of surrealism, one an audio tapes and the other one through Python, which also was a lot of audio tapes because I went to a boarding school, didn't have television, so I was often listening to the Python tapes. So just lots of surrealism going in, and I bought Alice Through the Looking Glass at the same time. So I was really digging the surrealism.
And I think Sellers and then the Pythons were the first to kind of cross over to America,
Yes, well, definitely Peter Sellers. He about 10 years before the Pythons, he actively pushed to come over, and then Kubrick, and then Strangelove, which I think could be his greatest work ever, Peter Sellers. And Pythons came later, and they were pretty sure that they wouldn't come. It was a guy in PBS in Dallas who put them on in Dallas first. So Dallas was, Texas was the first place to say, we like Python. And obviously it was the cooler, the more groovy people in Texas than the less groovy people in Texas. But a lot of Texans come to my stuff. That was the first time when I was touring in the northern states. A lot of Texans would come up, obviously the more groovy and loose guys, and say, hey, you got to come and play the southern states. And I thought, oh, really? I didn't think they'd dig my stuff. But, of course, states are all big places. And
Texas has a lot of weird. They really enjoy, they love extremes.
Yes.
Right? So there are just all different kinds of people there. But when you came to America, it's such a giant market.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult for a stand-up to cross over here.
Yeah, I was. There were a few things going on. One, I was determined to do it, and people in America who I talked to mostly would go, "It's not going to work because you're wearing this makeup, and no, they don't like that, and they're gonna, it's going to be weird." Robin Williams said that the smart people will get it. I just thought, I'm doing it. If Python can be grabbed by America, then that audience should be able to grab me. But I'm going to actively do it, and I rejected doing the club circuit because I just thought I'll get lost in that. I rejected trying to do a one-stop. I'm going to do a film because some of our top guys in Britain had come over and I've got a film, and here I am in a film. TV series landed absolutely fabulous, landed on its feet. They just got picked up. But I thought I will actively do my attack in my attack seems to be a strong word, but it's not invasion, but infusion, I think was the word. But I just thought New York was the place. The tastemaker, it always seems to be the tastemaker of, if not only America, maybe also North America and Canada as well. Once I started happening in New York, Toronto paid attention, which the press in Toronto started talking to me, which they weren't talking to me before. And so I just thought, if I play New York forever and ever until New York says, yes, you're okay, particularly New York Times, get a good review there, and then I thought I could move out from that base, that bridgehead, into the rest of America. But it was a definite thing. I was coming, I wanted to do it, and I would play forever. Like U2, the U2 approach. Yes. So they said that we're going to America, we're going to get America, and if America says no, we'll just keep going back, keep going back, keep going back. And I was doing it without the airwaves, without really a show happening. And then HBO picked up on the third show, and they threw it on their screens, and then it went to stratosphere.
But you did use a term there which plays throughout almost every page of the book, and that's being determined. You just push and push and push.
Yeah, well, I think it's an American trait, the pioneer trait that you have, Australians have as well. I mean, in fact, it's an emigrant trait. You know, it is. I link up with people. You know, I've now played 45 countries around the world. I was in India, and the 95% of the audiences in India were Indian guys, as opposed to expat audiences, British or Americans, turning up and watching the show. And that was fantastic. And they're ready to do stand-up. They're ready to do stand-up around the world. About 200 million of them speak English. It's a huge country, and so that was great to be in India, and lots of considering their British and Indian history, and to be there and then really digging it. But we have this. It's a human trait. America has it as a big fuel, part of your zeitgeist. Is that the word? You know, part of your DNA, maybe. Yeah. Look, a lot of immigrants came in, and a lot of them were saying, come on, let's go do it, let's go build it, let's go make it. No one's going to help us. You know, then it gets into the argument of whether you should have federal help. You know, Democrats and Republicans. Pull myself up by my bootstraps. As Senator Al Franken says, you've got to have boots first to be and federal government gives you boots. So I know my book is competing with Al Franken's, and I want to go into politics, and my politics is almost exactly the same as Al Franken's. So I'm very impressed with what he has done.
Well, you've talked about politics for a few years now, right? So what makes the time for the leap to take place? When
will it be?
When will you run?
I wanted to go in 2020, but seeing as we've just had an election that was going to be a power grab for the Tories, they failed in that dismally and lost 13 seats. We gained about 32 seats in the Labour Party. So it's now a very mixed message. This whole Brexit hate, separation, Trump hate, all this 1930s politics that's being tried out, that's all got muddied. So that's confusing. So I was going to go in 2020. That's when we were going to have our next election. But now it could well be before that. I won't go until 2020 happens. So the next election after 2020 is when I'll go. So it could be 2021, 2022.
It is very interesting that across the world, it's almost the same kind of arguments, no matter what the government is, right? It's kind of, are we global? Are we national?
Well, that's it. Nationalism is so much an easier thing of saying it's us. You know, the in and out groups. And you can understand, and people in America saying, America number one, number one, number one. It's a place that you want to be. I want the England team or the British team to be doing well at the Olympics, the England team to be winning at football, which we just didn't. We just lost to France. But, you know, you want your team to be winning, but that's why nationalism is always an easier card to play than the idea, which I'm saying this is a key century for us in this century, 21st century. We have to make it so that everyone, all 7 billion people in the world, have a fair chance. That's what I politically think. And no one goes into politics saying, I'm going to argue for the world.
Right.
It's just, well, what about your constituency? But I'm going to try and do this crazy thing of arguing. This is the century. We either make it for the world, we make it work so that all 7 billion people do have a fair chance, or I think we could wipe ourselves off the planet. I think think those are the stakes.
Yeah.
I think the stakes are very high now, and this extremist thing that can be just whipped up, Donald Trump just saying whatever comes into his head and whatever's gone on with Russia, and it's just gone to this very odd place. But it's 1930s politics. Look back to 1930s. If anyone gets out a DVD, reads a book, it's all there. They tried it before, doesn't work. This it's a beguiling politics, extremist politics. It says, do one or two things and everything will be fine. Hate these people, everything will be fine. Build a wall, everything will be fine. Leave Europe, everything will be fine. Just, it doesn't work. We have to have it so that we're heading towards a world that is fair for everyone. And if we're heading away from that, that just means we're storing up trouble for later.
Well, if we do head away from that, I hope we just go back to letting just the original 13 states vote. Everybody will still spread the money around, but just the guys who started this. The
You mean
Northeast.
the Native American guys?
Oh,
yes?
yeah. Oh, that's back too far.
Yeah, that's too far. That's interesting, yeah. Because they came all the way through from the other side. We should go back, because the original Homo sapiens were black guys.
Yes.
Were African guys who came out, and the Neanderthals were the white guys. Now, this is something that's not hugely known. So there's a book called Sapiens. You can read that. You can read all about this stuff. I think that's fantastically interesting. And if you go back in our history, and a lot of people, I think, in your country, my country, around the world, do not feel they have enough spare time or do not wish to sift through all the truth as opposed to these alternative lies that are coming up, the truth of what's going on, and the actual facts of what's happened and how we got to this place. We are all related. All 7 billion of us are related. We all came out of Africa about 60, 70,000 years ago, and we probably mixed up with the Neanderthal people around and the other different Homo groups, which I use the word Homo, Homo groups, meaning, yes, in the original version of the term, and, we're all linked together, and we spend hours, no, we don't spend hours, we spend years and decades fighting each other, saying how different we are, and we're all the same. And it's bizarre that we constantly look for the differences. But I'm trying to look for similarities. I'm trying to make bridges. That's why I'm performing in 45 countries and performing in 4 languages now. So Spanish, German, and French, as well as English.
All right, this is a town hall, so we said some of these folks can ask some questions. Who do we have, Vito?
First, we have Phyllis.
Were you always interested in history, or did your interest emerge from your comedy?
That is an interesting point. At school, I was interested only in the things that happened, the dates, the facts. The facts, hey, crazy world where we're fighting for facts. I was interested in what happened, but then they'd say write an essay about it, and I'm dyslexic and I didn't like essays, and so I didn't like that bit of it. So I like talking about it and finding out, oh, that happened and then this. And in Britain, we'd get this question all the time. How did the First World War start? It was a very complicated reasons. How is it? It goes on and on and on. All these different countries eventually all choosing to take sides and then tear each other apart. But so I was kind of interested in the whys. I have this theory that history plus the change in society all multiplied by the change in technology equals the future. So that's, if you look at the repeats of humanity, if you study history, we can see, did that again. And then another warlord came, monarch, drug lord, whatever, killer, Genghis Khan type person came up, and how they used, Genghis Khan used ultimate fear. That's the way the Nazis did exactly the same thing. Ultimate fear. If you do this one thing, if somebody crosses us, we will wipe out the entire village, town, tribe. Caesar did the same thing. If any of the Gaullist tribes crossed him, he would wipe out the entire tribe. So people, through that fear, they think, oh, we shouldn't do it. The Nazis did the same thing. Interesting, throughout life, it's a scary idea because it just sits there as an idea that some people have tried, and, this is what extremists around the world are probably looking at right now. This extremist ideas where fear trumps reason. I don't like using the word Trump. Yes, so we got logic, common sense. When people vote against common sense, that is crazy. But anyway, through history, I just look at that because you should be able to predict where we're going. There's the potential of where we're going. Can we get through this century and make it so that this is heading towards a fair world for everyone? And I think we've got it. There's a lot of years. If you think about how we went from inventing the flying an airplane, was it 1912, going to the moon 69? Such a short period of time. We invented dynamite. Alfred Nobel invented dynamite in 1860. The hydrogen, not even the atom bomb, but the hydrogen bomb, 1950. That's only 90 years, and it's 70 years beyond that. What on earth have we invented now? There's going to be weapons out there we haven't even used.
Yeah.
If the wrong people get hold of this stuff, it's just, this is our century. This is the key century, 21st century. We make it work for all of us, or we're going to just, I think, blow ourselves off the planet.
But from a stand-up
That's a positive thought, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But, people used to think about it in the 50s. They would think about it every day. And now we've almost taken it back. Look, that's not.
Yes, well, we've
happen.
moved back from that from the two, and back in the 70s, and the Reagan-Thatcher years, it was also, we're ready for things to happen. But it's more the fact that what have we got invented? And I don't think it's necessarily superpowers going to do it. I just think you get a pissed off chemist, you get a pissed off physicist, pissed off intelligent person who can learn that stuff, and can, the internet can have a lot of positive things. You can save a person's life using the internet, and you can also learn how to make hellish bombs and things through the internet. So there is the ability out there to come up with horrific things which we can do to other human beings, and we keep, unless we're heading towards this fair world for everyone, I think that's going to keep happening.
To take it back to stand-up, though, I don't remember anyone working through history and bringing it up the way that you did. And I remember the first time I saw you, I thought, well, this is the exact opposite of current events. But you would go back far, but then you would, of course, show that these truths and these struggles hadn't changed much.
Yeah, and the human beings are the same all the way back. I just noticed that no one was doing history. I did have an epiphany moment. Epiphany was there and said, "Hey, have you noticed this?" I said, thanks, Epiphany. And it was, no one was really doing history. Python did history, of course. Yeah. In slices, sometimes they do things that are just completely silly, and then Holy Grail is historical legend, and then Life of Brian is religious politics and human politics and political politics, really. We're talking about the schisms of religion, how they all broke up in 10 minutes and that kind of thing. Yeah. But I just suddenly realized no one's doing history. I can dive into that. I was trying to separate myself out from white male middle class stand-ups, which there were a ton of in Britain and probably in America as well.
Let's go to the next question.
We have Liz Mealy.
Liz Mealy is a great comedian, by the way. And Liz, great to see you here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I was just telling him beforehand, Dress to Kill and Circle had like a huge influence on me when I was a teenager. And I actually didn't know you were dyslexic.
Yes.
I'm dyslexic, and so is my whole family. And my question actually kind of applied to that because I guess it's an excuse now, but I never bothered. I barely know English. So the fact that you're learning all these languages and then you're performing in all these languages, like I'm slightly mad now knowing that you have.
I'm not writing them. I'm not writing them down though.
But that's
I'm just because.
But you're still learning, because I've learned everything about dyslexia. Like, there's the Dyslexic Advantage, which is like a book that basically tells you all the pros of being dyslexic, because I grew up with all the cons.
What are the pros?
You can do like bigger world thinking. So the way you can make an attachment to something like a squirrel and then tell you how, we're all going to die someday. Like, you know what I mean?
That's
like
negative.
you got paid for that analogy. So that bigger world thinking, what do you call it? It's my brother Sam. You should know some of this stuff.
So I don't want to put you on the spot there. But anyway, what's the book? So if other
The Dyslexic Advantage.
The Dyslexic. Okay, you can download it right now.
Yeah, I did a conference for them. They do a conference in Connecticut where it's all these dyslexic people who are like, I'm still living. Because it's basically entrepreneurs. I mean, I actually like to see any comic when I see them write on Facebook. I'm just like, oh, they're definitely dyslexic because this doesn't make sense, but they're very funny. But my question is basically, you've done your stand-up in English, and then you decided to learn all these languages and do it in another language. Yeah. Was it because... What was your exact reasoning for learning all these different languages and then taking it?
It was a positive European idea. I was very positive about people in Europe gradually coming together. We are trying to do the blueprint, even though this whole Brexit thing has gone into a weird place of separation. I mean, you had a whole secession thing in yours, before the Civil War. Different gig, different ideas behind that. But I just thought, what could I do that's positive towards showing that the idea of people coming together is a good and positive thing? And it is actually the history of humanity. We have always been tribe, smaller tribe, bigger tribe, sometimes by conquest, but then gradually more enlightened leaders come through assimilation, or at least blending together, people intermarrying. I mean, Alexander the Great went around conquering and then saying, hey, my guys, could you possibly marry into these Persian ladies and you're the Greek guys, and then we can have a more positive future, which might be less warring. Certain monarchy lines have done it where they've just intermarried constantly. So I was trying to show this. What could I do in Europe? It's such a comparatively big place compared to America. It isn't actually big, but all these different languages, different countries, different histories. They're histories that go back at least 1,000 years. And I thought, just doing languages, maybe I could do that. I like languages. I'd like to get better at languages, so that's the gift to myself. Anything you do, always try and give something back to yourself. So I was going to get better at French if I was doing gigs in French. And then I thought it could show something, and I could break through this thing that, the French have a visual sense of humor. You guys might say that as well. I don't know if the French, the Germans have no sense of humor. And this is not true. I've already proved this not to be true. We have a German comedian called Henning Venn who goes all the way around. He only performs in Britain, and he blew that out of the water by people now pay money to go and see Henning talk about quite often the differences between Germans and the British people, but they're all laughing their socks off at this guy. And I'm now performing in German, and the German guys, Michael Mittermeier, he's performing in English. So all those barriers, psychological barriers, could be broken down. So it was an active political thing to break down the barriers. As a business idea, I thought it was a good idea because it develops up another country where I can go and play, which is I'm still about the break even. I toured to 5,200 people in France about 2 years ago, but I'm still about the break even point. But it just seemed positive, more positive than sitting on my own and saying, I hate everyone, and tweeting like a Mr. Donald Trump. So I'm trying to reach out to other people. I'm saying, I'm proud of my country, but can we learn from you in your country, in, say, America, France, wherever? Can you learn from us? Can we share ideas? Surely that is the way forwards for humanity, rather than putting up walls, separating out, saying we hate each other, and pulling back and starting lobbing rocks over the walls just like back in the old days. That's old tribalism. We've done all that stuff. We're all human beings. We're all the same genetics. Shakespeare said, if you cut me, do I not bleed? And that blood is going to be the same genetic genome through all 7 billion of us. And this is the crazy thing. And how many wars? The only wars that we haven't had is about the colour of eyes. Do you realise that?
No, is that right?
And the only reason we didn't that is we couldn't see what colour people's eyes are until you get really close. So you can't line up a battle and go, kill the blue-eyed people. I can't. Yeah. The green-eyed. What? I can't see. Get some big glasses, everyone. Only owls would be able to do that. But dyslexia, I found that we think sideways more than, if you're not dyslexic, you might think A to B to C to D. And dyslexic, we go, E looks like a B with the front bit cut off, and we go sideways. So we can come up with a lot of creative people, I think, are dyslexic. That's what I think. So, but I think out of the box, and I think I've done a number of things out of the box now that have proven you can think this way and you can make things more positive this way. I mean, just doing gigs in French. French guys, Gad Elmaleh is now touring all around America in English, and he's one of the top French comedians. German comedians are now doing it, performing in English, and the Russians are, Scandinavians are. This has changed, and this never happened before. In our lifetime, this has completely changed, and it will never go back in the box because it's too good and positive. It's just a good thing. So.
From a performing point of view, though, it keeps you uncomfortable, right?
Yes. That's a very good point.
Once again starting fresh, like your open mic days.
Very fresh. The French people are not going, this transvestite guy, absolutely. I mean, even the very positive French guys, the cooler people, are going, okay, I'll give you the time of day, but I don't quite know what you're going to... So there's not so much surreal comedy in France and Germany, interestingly. I think that we wonder whether that was after World War II, whether they said, look, because the basis of surreal comedy is it starts in pure silly, and maybe after World War II, both Germany from what they did in that, and France because of Vichy France and the sort of that uncomfortable World War II that they had, they said, look, we can't do just silly stuff. It's going to be political, it can be slapstick or something, but not just pure silly like what the essence of Python is and what I love. And we start from silly, and now you put layers of truth underneath it or resonance underneath it, and that's where you get to.
But you know, even when you brought up the fact that you two came over, they had to win over an audience then, but not since. I think a comic always has to win over an audience, even when he's established for decades.
Yes.
You still have to win that with new material all the time.
Yes, that is true. We don't go out and do our old hits. Well, I might be going out and touring Dress to Kill, but it would be a Dress to Kill remix. That's in the future. We don't know. I think America might be very up for that, but that might be before I go into politics. That might be my last tour, a tour of Dress to Kill. But I'd have to remix it slightly because I need to. I don't know if you find this. You can lose the beauty of comedy. You know, you come up with a piece. It's really nice. It's fresh, and then it gradually it descends a bit and becomes a bit leaden, a bit like a prayer, a bit locked in concrete. And so that's why I keep this. I have this molten material idea, which I'm not sure if I mentioned in the book, but it's the idea that I keep moving it about so that it's always. I don't quite know where I'm going with it, and it keeps it alive. It keeps it in this fresh place, and then you could add a new bit onto it. You can ad lib off in different directions.
You do bring up something in the book, and I know we have some comedians here today. And I've never heard anybody talk about this, but you say like any kind of crowd work or improv, once it gets on film, it loses 1/3. You said it loses 1/3 of its power.
Yes, now crowd work. I actually pushed back on doing anything with people where you're from, this kind of stuff, because I found that critics mark it way down. They just say that's found comedy. I feel they think, oh, the audience gave you that comedy. I knew a guy called Mark Lamar. He was brilliant at this stuff. Brilliant. And we comedians knew that he was doing just complete genius stuff with it. But I don't think the critics realized what he was doing, that he was finding stuff that just you couldn't. I remember turning to another comedian, Jeff Green, and we were watching Mark Lamar, and it was at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and he had. I said, "Would you have pulled out by now?" Because he was working a bit, and I said, "Would you have pulled it?" He said, "Yeah, I would have pulled out by now." And he still was going, and he found another bit. He found a new lease of life in it. So I blocked all that off, and I. But the improvisation, we noticed the improvisation, if an audience watches it, it's like improv shows. I know that some people who do improv shows, some producers who do improv shows, they just keep shooting until you get a really good scene. And then on the screen, you just see group improvisers doing really funny scenes one after the other, because the audience won't stand the idea of a weaker scene. But it would be nice to have live group improv on television, because then people could tune in and know, and you set the bar saying some of this will not work, and then when it does work, everyone is elated by it's happened right in front of our eyes. But most if you're doing your stand-up video and you've mucked about and failed a bit and then succeeded a bit, I just think most audiences, I don't have time for this, especially these days with everything, so many other channels. Get a cup of coffee, someone ring at the doorbell, gonna phone someone, they just think it's got to be tighter, and that works better. And
also, the problem with any kind of special, too, is you're just one back from that live show. To be in the live show sometimes thrilling, but then now, as soon as there's a filter, as soon as you film it.
Absolutely. As soon as you film it, it is less... It's not all wrapped around you. Maybe in the future you can put on glasses, those glasses, and you will actually be in the show... I don't know where that goes, but because you still know it's recorded. But if you, in the future, maybe you can do live shows that are piped all around the world.
I think they will be live, but who knows how we'll feel.
Yeah, but if they put on the glasses and the things, and then we'll look like we're in Tommy.
Yeah.
The rock opera.
Next question.
Elaine Armstrong.
Hello.
Hello.
You touched on this a bit, but given your political savviness, you're so much sassier and smarter than the Theresa May bit over there. What's the best way to resist the madness coming out of Washington? Or do you? Maybe you don't.
Well, I having listened to or buy Senator Al Franken's book, Giant of the Senate, which I've already listened to, because he says at this time you've just got to use this as fuel to get active, get out there, get working. Because remember, we can turn this around. Politics keeps moving. You know, a week is a long time in politics, especially with these Senate hearings going on a long time. And so we have no idea what's going to happen, but you've got to get out there. If you're fighting against huge amounts of money, I mean, you've got the trouble that we've got a certain amount of money in our political campaigns. You have with the Koch brothers and these just billions and you know, this dark money. You don't know what, there's no transparency to it. It's a really tricky thing, and you need to get back into transparency in elections, as much transparency as possible, and it isn't really happening through that. So, but just use it as fuel to get active, get out there. If you want to make a difference, make a difference. Don't sit there and think, oh, this is terrible, but just get more active and go further forwards and at a faster speed. Work harder, get linked up. And that's what I say, because we've got to be heading towards this world where everyone has a fair chance.
Well, I think that one thing that I've noticed that we see in the States and also in Britain is that city people tend to vote very differently than country people. Yeah. And how do we bridge that? I mean, there's, I guess, two different lives going on there.
Yes, I mean, it's the same in your country, my country. Yeah. That must be all around the world. The same in, in Egypt, where a lot of the people in Cairo, young people were saying, hey, we've got to have a different future. And then a lot of people out in the rural areas were saying, well, we're just going to vote very conservative. And yes, I'm not sure what the best way changing that. It's just people gravitate towards the cities who want, some people grow up in rural areas and they are surrounded by more conservative thinking, be it socially conservative or actually politically conservative, fiscally conservative, and they might think, I don't think this is the right way forward. I got to get into a city, where some people say, no, I'm going to stay out here. I'm not quite sure how we're just going to get more people who are thinking more positively. It's got to be the live and let live kind of place. But, somewhere between the centre right, centre left, and your centre is further to the right than our centre.
Is that right?
Yes, that's always trouble, because we've had a left, and you can, before Bernie Sanders, you couldn't even say the word left, really.
Yes, yeah.
So, yeah, it is, you just have to know it's there and see what you can do to work to get the votes in. It's a tricky thing. I mean, 3 million more people did vote for Hillary Clinton, so that is something that's slightly odd in your system. All political systems are odd.
Yes, they are, aren't they?
But also the way that the extreme right wing was blocking the system so that you couldn't get a new Supreme Court judge.
Yes.
Now that seems wrong.
It was confusing even to us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember we going, I don't see how that could be. And then we're told, no, it is. This is the way it is.
And have the Republicans put in?
Yes.
They've already put.
Yeah, we've already put in a new conservative Supreme Court judge.
That seems just wholly wrong.
Yeah. Next question.
Yeah.
Jen Mancini.
Hello, how are you? My question is, after seeing your Madison Square Garden show a few years ago with my friends, we often wonder, is there anything that you deem too controversial for a set based on location? If I'm in New York, I do it this way. If I'm in LA, I do it this way.
No, I don't change it. If I'm in Moscow, if I'm in Paris, if I'm in Cairo, if I'm in French or German, I start off with human sacrifice. That's... which is the one thing that humanity has moved beyond, which is interesting, because there's other, you say slavery as well, but there's still illegal slavery, but I don't think there's any illegal human sacrifice going on, which is interesting, because we all used to do it without phoning each other out around the world, saying, are you doing human sacrifice? Yes, we live, I didn't even know you guys existed, so this is a long chain of things. And does it help the crops? Not at all. Well, it's a bit... We're talking to a guy called Donald Trump, and he says yes. But I think anyone can talk about anything. It's where you go with that material is the point. So if you were talking about something about that involved the death or the very hard time of some people having suffering of illnesses or whatever, I would I could talk about it, but I personally wouldn't go in and say, I think that's a good thing that people are having a bad time, unless they were power groups. If they were power groups who are giving a lot of other people a bad time, I'm happy for them to have a bad time. Pushing back on the Nazis, yes, absolutely. Hitler was can I say these words, mass murdering fuckhead? I'm not sure.
Yes, I think you can. I think that works.
That is the historical term that professional historians use. Because sometimes the words for Hitler, I just noticed they weren't strong enough. He was a monster. He was a this, that. No, mass murdering motherfucker. Yes, but I think you can talk about anything, but it's just where you go with it. And I will not personally go into. I won't. I will constantly go where I feel I should go, but I will just be very rough on the Nazis, and the extremists and the fascists and the hate people.
Well, bringing up Hitler, Chaplin jumped into that, and Chaplin wasn't a political comedian, I don't think, before then.
No, he wasn't.
And that was an amazing thing. I think
it was. He shared the same birthday. I don't know if anyone can correct me on this. I think it's exactly the same day they were born on. Definitely the same year, and I think it's the same month.
Same mustache.
Well, that is weird. That Hitler had early Hitler mustache. Was just an ordinary mustache, and then he said, "No, I'm going to adopt the one that Charlie Chaplin, who was known in Germany, so it would have been a known mustache." The mind boggles. That Chaplin went into that, and it was. I think that was one of the first times he was talking in a. In a film.
He decided this is so important. I'm going to say, and he didn't do it to the end of the film, but there's that chance of comedy, once again, to be used in a way like beyond making people just laugh.
Yes, well, I think comedy is a very useful tool in that way, and it is an attack weapon. It's interesting in politics, but in the end, it can't change things, change votes, like Senator Al Franken is now in a position where he can actually change things, being an elected politician. Otherwise, we're activists and we're pressure groups, and we're trying to encourage people to make changes. And comedy is good at illuminating things, but sometimes you wonder, can it do enough? Can it really change things? But I knew that, from a transgender point of view, I knew that if I came out and I was loose and throwaway about it, that could change some opinions, which I think it has helped to do. Obviously, there's a lot of other activists around the world, people are working on that and in LGBT plus areas. But I just thought if I was loose and groovy about it, talked about being an action transvestite, an executive transvestite, those two little buzz lines there really helped me, because people go, actually, that's quite funny, but now running the marathons and being transgender, that's an interesting mix. That is the part that does explain me and my sexuality. And I've got boy mode and girl mode. I did want to be in special forces when I was a kid, so instead I feel I've done civilian special forces, which is the gigs in 4 languages, 80 marathons plus, and coming out 32 years ago.
32 years. And you bring up, even in the book, there's occasions in your life where you have to confront. I reported a guy just outside my house in London to the police. I just said, I know this guy's name and he's threatened things on me, so I just put the name in just so that you know this name in case anything happens. And then the Crown Prosecution Service said they're going to take action. They did, and he had the day in court and all that kind of stuff, and he was found guilty on, I think, 2 or 3 charges. So that was good to see that in action. It's quite a tricky thing to do for anyone. You have to go up there, stand up there and do that and confront the person and all that kind of stuff. And then I came back from that, I think, and then I came out of the tube, the underground station, where I just got back, and then someone else just shouted at me. I thought, almost in exactly the same place. And I thought, It's so it does go on. So you just have to be ready. There are dickheads still in the world. As we know. And the internet has made it easier to be reached by those people.
Trolling is interesting. This attacking and hiding behind the internet is a curious thing that now happens. I mean, I've actually looked at politics all through the ages as I've gone back through history, and I found that it's always been really bad. You know, if you think right now it's really, but in fact it's always like that. There's no particular time. You don't go 1352. Oh, that was a great time. You know, it's just because it's all rubbish. Generally, if you ever get really pissed off about things, draw a line of human rights, and human rights have generally from, say, 10,000 years ago, or ancient Egyptians, something like 60,000, whatever that is, just if you draw, it gradually bubbles up. We are in a somewhat better place than we were before. Things do gradually head more positive. The fact that I'm just sitting here, the fact that I'm allowed to walk around in these heels, or that I can walk in these heels, is cool.
Well, you know, I guess we'll come all the way back to the way we started, 1968. If you think back to that year, people like Martin Luther King, Bobby Kennedy were being killed. But we also, and you were one of the kids like I was, that was watching people going to the moon.
Yeah.
I mean, we've always had the worst of times and best of times.
I think that is unfortunately the human way, and it is beautiful. Your NASA missions, and I'm going to give my nod to the Russians as well. The Russians did amazing stuff. Anyone going to the International Space Station. I've talked to 2 astronauts up there, which is just fun to be able to chat to them. I've been lucky enough to talk to them, but it's a great thing doing that kind of stuff. The International Space Station, they always try and keep politics out of it, I believe, and work together because they've got missions to do for humanity as opposed to for national reasons. And yeah, your space missions I thought were our space missions, but they were actually yours. But I noticed that the flags were left off a lot of the patches.
Yes.
I think the flags were generally off the patches, and that was nice that you were doing it, and the guys felt that they'd like to do it for humanity, and and for America, but also for humanity, and it was great. And a lot of that American, let's go do it, let's go build it. That was in me from the off. And if it was, 1700s, 1800s, I would have been on those boats coming over.
Sure.
New World, I would have been there. Come on.
And
maybe not transgender.
Yeah. Those original astronauts, I don't know if kids have any of those kind of positive heroes to look at. I mean, these were heroes that were doing something that was peaceful.
Yeah. Yeah, and scientific and exciting, and you could get free toys in breakfast cereals. Did you have that, the breakfast cereals? The breakfast cereals?
Loved it.
Yeah. I have a whole section in the book about, a whole few paragraphs about, I used to go through, you put one bowl of cereals, and the free space rocket is not in that first bowl, so you have to wait till the next morning, and then the second one is not, and it would be about bowl 5 or bowl 6, and I didn't realize until I was an adult you could just shove your hand in. Which I started doing when I was about 20.
Obviously, we just scraped through the book. It's fantastic. By the way, everybody's getting a book. Is that right? That's fantastic. It's, believe me, Eddie Izzard. Thank you so much, my friend. Fascinating.
Thank you.
See you next time. Eddie Izzard, everybody. Wonderful.